y'all, it's Stevie, and I'm so sick and tired of the right wing saying that the man who assassinated Melissa Hortman and her husband was a Democrat. He was not. He is a big old Christian nationalist. He's been living with psychosis since at least the age of 17. He is undermedicated and underdiagnosed. The article talks about his home church, which is in Minnesota, and it is in the cafeteria of a middle school. And apparently the people there go on missions to Africa and abroad. And also their sermons frequently talk about the end of times that is coming soon. And in sermons, they also talk about him being a wonderful missionary and a devoted father. Now, the pastor of this church is named Ken Krause. He's the founding pastor. And apparently he stepped down not too long after the shootings. And he tells the journalist that, hey, we don't kill people here, even though their sermons have violent imagery. For example, they call Bible study for the kids sword training. At 17, apparently, Vance was at work at a canning factory, and for 30 minutes he was crying and praying, and God came to him and basically was like, oh, I got you. And so at 17, he burned all this stuff and started preaching in the town square. And there's a quote from someone who knew him from childhood that basically said that, oh, he's always been extreme. That's just him. That's who he is as a person. And then Vance enrolled at St. Cloud University in 1985, and they nicknamed him the preacher. But then before finishing college, he met somebody named David Emerson, who was an evangelical, and dropped out of college. And David Emerson was killed in a massacre in Zimbabwe in 1987 because apparently they were part of a group of missionaries that were building wells for farmers, and the rebels didn't like that. I'm going to take that with a grain of salt because I know these missionaries. So after Emerson's death, Vance enrolled at a Texas college, Christian college, that was focused on charismatic Christianity and also the Seven Mountains. It was called Christ for the Nations Institute. And it's a part of a school and, of course, a nonprofit that really, really spun up support for Trump when he was running. And apparently they have said that they have, educated over 40,000 people who have gone on to evangelize in 170 countries. And apparently the school believes in violent prayer, but says that phrase is misunderstood by the general public. But anyways, some of the school's graduates believe that after they convert 1 billion non-believers into Christians, then Jesus will come back. In 1990, he graduated from the school and apparently went back to Minnesota and was preaching. Apparently, he said he was preaching at a college. The college people said, who are you talking about? We don't know who the fuck this is. So this is likely in his imagination. Who knows? Again, this man has been living with psychosis his entire adult life. He got married to his wife in 1997. They named their daughters Faith, Hope, Joy, and Grace. And they named the son after the guy who was killed in Zimbabwe, David. And of course, they homeschooled their children all the way through high school. So I hope they're doing well. And then Vance says he's spent the last 6 years in Africa, missionizing people, whatever the fuck it is that they're doing over there when they go to the countries. And somehow he does end up in a church in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is where this photo is from on the screen. And there is a sermon where he says, some people, especially in America, say, if you follow Jesus, everything will be, good for you. That's not in the Bible. Most of Jesus's 12 apostles died horrible deaths serving the Lord. And then he also says in another sermon that America's a bad place because the churches aren't hard enough against abortion. God is going to send a prophet to correct their course. Now it goes back to talking about his church. He originally went to Bethany Church and Bethany Global University, whatever the fuck that is. The university was going to sell the campus. And the pastor guy, who is the Ken Krause guy from, earlier, he wanted to keep the church. So he moved it, and Vance followed that pastor guy to what is now his church. These people consider the Bible the primary source of Christian life. So these are Bible believers, which means they follow the Bible as written. And apparently the reporters reviewed like a year's worth of sermons where that Krause guy is talking about, the coming of Jesus, that he's coming soon. And those who aren't on the right side are going to be punished. Lots of their sermons basically condemn all the things: abortion, same-sex marriage, gender ideology, women not, focusing on being a wife and a mother and working outside the home. They don't like any of the things. All the things are bad and they're all going to be punished, and they basically just shouldn't be here. And then it quotes somebody who used to actually go to this church who has since, left the church and basically deconstructed. And she's like, basically, we were borderline, told to be violent towards anybody that wasn't just like us. And another lady said that Vance always had an air of superiority about him, which is completely unsurprising. These people are so fucking narcissistic. First of all, that you think God is talking to you. Second of all, that you think that you know best. Third of all, that you think it's upon you to take out other people. Like, who the fuck are you? These people are narcissistic and they're unbalanced and they're unwell. And then while the people in the church, including the pastor, are like, oh, well, we're not a part of that violence. But that couple survived 17 gunshots. So I see two miraculous interventions. It was a bad thing, but I see God moving in and changing the outcome. It reinforces the validity of God's presence. So the violence that these people basically have been, calling for, saying is coming, that, prophets are going to come punish the people who are not following the Lord's word, are also saying that this violence that these people are experiencing and the fact that they didn't die is evidence of a miracle. Not the medical professionals that saved their lives. It was Jesus. It was their bad behavior that got them hurt. And it was the good Lord that saved them. Even though it was one of their Christian nuts that did the harm. And the medical professionals that did the saving. There's no fucking miracle here. There's a psycho and medical professionals that believe in science. And this is going to be the end of part 1 because I didn't realize how much was in here. And these people, there's too much in here for me to just not include it because they're swearing he's not a Christian nationalist. They're swearing he's a Democrat. And every inch of this story is this man being a Christian nationalist, living by the Bible. This is what happens when people are living by the Bible and they are undermedicated, undiagnosed, and living with psychosis, surrounded by people who grift and profit off of them being unwell. This is a problem and everybody should be alarmed. This is exactly the stuff that Kirkwoman was talking about. If you want to live by the Bible, this is living by the Bible. The same thing that this church, living by the Bible. Mind you, this article was written August 17th before any of that should happen. So there's a message in this. Repost this and follow for the second part.